Hello and welcome to the Confusion Wrestling Podcast, the last bastion of independent wrestling. I'm your host, Rob Kammer, and this week we're going to play a drinking game. We are going to have a drink every time I bring up Galli Lucha Libre in Davenport, Iowa. I say this because it is through this event, post-pandemic, I believe. Don't get time means nothing. But through Galli Lucha Libre and their events in Davenport, Iowa, I got to see interesting gentleman that I've wanted to have the show on quite some time, and finally got the opportunity to reach out to him and have him on the podcast. That is Axel Rico, killing it in the Chicago wrestling scene, working like every weekend and not have to leave the suburbs terribly often. But he does. He comes to Davenport, Iowa to wrestle for Galli Lucha Libre. We talk, well, Lucha Libre, a lot of Galli, getting to work with like some Lucha royalty through Galli, and of course, wrestling throughout the Chicago suburbs, and dare I reference how much I dislike Chicago in general. But that's for another time, maybe another episode. I don't know, maybe later this episode. That's what we call a segue. No, it's closer to foreshadowing. A segue is what we're doing now, in which I tell you to go get yourself an energy drink, or some coffee, or even a coffee maker, and we'll be back, un momento, with Axel Rico. Hey folks, the Confusion Wrestling Podcast has become a veritable hub of shopping and treats and all that sort of good stuff. Whether you need a sugar-free alternative to energy drinks in the form of Raise Energy, or maybe even, top-of-the-line ice makers, coffee machines, and other household appliances, all through my links section. All you got to do is wander down to the descriptor of this week's episode, check out the various links, click on them, and go shopping like you normally would. Heck, it's no difference. You just came in and just said Rob sent you. And that way, you can get the things you need, maybe even at a discount, and the podcast gets a kickback as well. So be sure to check out those links. Thank you very much for listening. Back to the show. And we are back, Confusion Wrestling Podcast. This time I didn't punch the microphone, so we're rocking this in hopefully one take again. But as I said at the top of the show, got a very special guest in the studio this week. He is killing it up in the Chicagoland area and thereabouts. He is El Unico, Axel Rico. How are you doing this evening, man?
Oh man, besides just having a busy week and trying to get ready for all the shows that are ending out the year, I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy to spend some time and just talk about nerdy wrestling, whatever stuff with good buddy. So thank you for having me. And your pronunciation was pretty good. A lot of people butcher either Axel or Rico, or especially El Unico. That can be a little bit challenging, but you did a pretty good job. Thank you.
My problem is like, and I'll out myself, like with my limited Spanish, like I never mastered rolling the R's. Like, I don't know if that's just some like, I don't know, congenital birth defect kind of thing going there, but not that I was ever like good at Spanish anyway. I can order off a menu and quasi pronounce things, and that's. I am the Stephanie McMahon meme of when I say saying gracias at the Mexican restaurants.
Well, as long as you know how to say you can go to the bathroom, go to the wrestling show, and order off whatever food, you're good.
I mean, we'll start things off with like a funny story, because like even like I joke that like no means no in a bunch of languages, and I got to go to, and we'll touch on this here in a bit as well, but Galli Lucha Libre with Drago. And Drago was not taking no for an answer when he kept asking if I wanted to photograph. Like I bought the 8x10, and he's like, picture? Like, no fotografia. No gracias. And he's like, picture, fotografia. No. I finally settled, because that's like also one of my weird quirks is I don't take too many pictures with the wrestlers, but he just wasn't gonna like let me go without me being mean. So, and I didn't want to be mean to him because he's a dragon.
Yeah, that's true.
But before we got derailed by my, whitest of the white person language gaps, I do usually start things off with the always original, never before asked question. What
Okay.
made you a fan of professional wrestling?
Well, as most people know, but of course, since we're reaching realms of first time being here, I was born and raised in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, which is why I guess I gave myself the beautiful last name of Rico. And my uncles, who are a set of twins, they were pool sharks, and loved to go to anything around the island, and they met a guy named Kuka Man, who was a local indie wrestler in Puerto Rico. And when I was a child, they would take me to his house because he had just walls of VHSs. They had a pool table, so it was always like a cool hangout spot. And he would always just put on a random show while we were all hanging out. And he handed me, he was like, you know what? Here you go, kid. And it was WCW Halloween Havoc. And he gave me this VHS tape. And the first match on there was Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio, mask versus championship match. And once I saw Rey in the purple spandex doing all these crazy flips and dives and out to the outside, and then seeing this beautiful mullet man with a beautiful mustache, just ripped to the bone. But I was like, this is freaking sweet. And it just made me a fan from there. And then when I moved to this, even though Puerto Rico is still part of the U.S., let's not go crazy about that. When I moved to the States, I started watching early first episodes of SmackDown. Got to see that growing up. Big Attitude Era fan. Did my research. Did a lot of going back and forth between Puerto Rico, where I would see like indie shows, and it was really cool. So pretty much since I don't know, since I was about 2 or 3 years old, I just started watching wrestling at a local indie wrestler's house in Puerto Rico, and then I got my first VHS tape, and I saw some pretty good matches. So
Yeah, it's okay. All right. Yeah. So yeah, it's better now. That's the important thing. And I'll try to like think about like where it was like quasi rank. Because I'll just chop and Frankenstein it together. Once in a blue moon, like I would do like YouTube videos of just whatever, and I would just be like, just before there was going to be a cut, I would just like reference like TV magic, and boom, like yeah. But okay, but so wow, it's you got your introduction with probably like one of the best cruiserweight matches like ever. Like I would argue is probably the finest like, example of cruiserweight wrestling at least WCW ever put out there. So at least you got to start off with the good stuff instead of like I don't know watching something from the Divas or watching TL Hopper go at it or whatnot. But I have to just kind of like ask out of the nerd portion of it though. Did you ever get to come up with WWC with like Carlos Colon and whatnot?
I don't really like remember. I know I remember seeing like talking with him as an adult, and I was like, cuz being a young kid at like 3 years old, 4 years old, with I barely remember that like I went to like SeaWorld, you know what
Right.
I mean? Like or something like that, or when I see pictures of that. But he would say names and he was like, "Oh, you probably know them as like Serpentico and like the colognes and all that." So probably, um, I don't. I know I remember because we live near like the San Juan area, so that's not like where the colognes are. They're more like in the like middle of the island and all. But probably knowing my crazy uncles and the antics. That they would come up with. Like he loves to tell the story that he would use me to like pick up girls, like pretend I was lost, and then like they'd be like, "Oh my God, Axel! Oh my God, ladies, how are you? Thank you for saving our child." And then that's like how he met his wife. So who knows what with what those guys did for like just to get girls and hang out and do all these crazy pool sharks and things. So my family's awesome. So that's where I get my like ridiculous attitude and characters. Most of the time, I just think of like a family member of mine and then just go from there.
I'm just like if that impressed that like it worked and got him the wife because like I'm not gonna lie, I tried that with my nephew when he was like 2, and he just like blew it out of the water by like telling people that you may know karate, but my uncle knows crazy, and like, well, you are the worst ringman
Well,
ever.
well, I don't know. It must be just I was like, they probably saw something, and then it probably was just like meant to be because I'm over the top. I've never been afraid to like make a fool out of myself, even I guess at a very young age. So that was probably the difference between myself, 20 something years ago and your nephew. But hey, if he wants some tips, he's got, you can reach out. We can have a talk with him. I could give him pointers, and go from there.
So he's old now. Like, he is much too old to be wingman for me, like, or at least by being a cute little child. I mean, I could try it, but now it'd just be kind of creepy, and they'd just be like, "Why don't you have a cell phone? Because you're old enough to have a cell phone."
Yeah, it doesn't really work as much anymore, does it?
Yeah, like it works when you're like 2 or 3, and then like, but he's like pushing 17 right now, so like,
Yeah, that's just he might get arrested.
yeah, somebody's gonna get in trouble, whether it's me, him, or whomever he's winging on. But coming up, kind of like with the early years of like SmackDown and whatnot. So did you ever? So were you part of like the OG SmackDown 6 era, or did you come in a little bit later than that?
No, I remember. I remember. I think I don't know because I've done a lot of like research after becoming a wrestler, so I don't. I kind of get it fuzzy. I know I was a big fan of Kurt Angle, like during that same era of Guerrero, Edge, Chavo, Benoit, Rey Mysterio, and Angle. I remember I was a big fan of him, but I remember him with hair and without hair. So I got the both ears, but I don't know if this was just like from starting from scratch during like researching just like eras and all that. But I do remember Sean giving the kick to The Rock on the first episode, but I don't remember if that was like just me as a kid being like, "Whoa," or me as an adult being like that was pretty cool, so I don't know if I remember watching the first ever episode or if but I do remember like watching every single week because as a like a lower class, we didn't have like cable or anything, so I was stuck with Friday Night SmackDown because it was on like the satellite TV. So I was like, man, I remember when Shelton Benjamin and not I almost said Chad Gable. Oh my god. But when he went to Raw, I was like, "Oh, that's so lame because I can't see him anymore." It's like that's just how I remember watching it. But yeah, I remember a big fan of Eddie, obviously. One of my best gear is that I've had made for me from this guy in Mexico is when he won his the championship against Brock Lesnar. I still consider that as one of my favorite matches. So to have the gauntlets very much like his, like in the style of his wear, of his boots with the kick pads, with the gold and the red, with the all different types of purples, green, and then with on the back instead of Guerrero, it said Rico on the back. So that's one that's like right now in storage, and I don't know if I'm ever gonna bring that back out. But that's my guy right there, Eddie Guerrero, and he just 20 years since he passed, that's still always crazy to me because in 2005 I was still a youngin. Mom didn't really want to spend $200 to do meet and greets and whatever, but that's one that I really regret, just being just too young to just have a small coin purse to put together. I was too busy trying to get like an Xbox, and play games with my friends instead of going out to try to meet like my idols and all that. So totally regret not meeting Eddie Guerrero when I was younger.
Hell, it's the curse of youth. I mean, I'll just throw it out there. Like, I don't think I actually attend. Like, despite being like a lifelong fan, I don't think I even attended a wrestling event. I was, yeah, I'm not even sure. Like, I think I would have still been in college. Like my first like I'd been like either my junior or senior year of college, like the first time I got to see wrestling live, and that was a SmackDown, and then didn't get to go to I didn't do any indies until well after I'd graduated, so like I was like pushing 30.
I guess yeah, Dude, so like the only reason I even did like the indies and stuff was because like my uncles would be like, he's a minor. We shouldn't even have to pay for his ticket, and they're like, just go in to watch the show. So like but ticket where I paid, I think the first thing that I ever did was either it was the Raw that Goldberg, Undertaker, and Brock Lesnar were all feuding for the Royal Rumble. And that was like the first time I ever had like my adult money. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just go see it. Maybe a friend will be there, maybe not. And I just had a fantastic time. That was like my first. And then from there, I think I saw War Games at NXT, but that's like 2016. And that's when I was thinking about like, do I do this? Do I do it for real? But yeah, but same thing. It was like the only reason I saw technically indies in Puerto Rico was because my uncles just were like, let's just go. So
Yeah. I just like was drawn to the fact that one, like, oh, I can actually just see like wrestling like shows up like every month-ish, like within driving distance, instead of waiting for like maybe once every 6 months for the WWE to show up. And the fact that like tickets are also like $10, like helped out a lot too. So
yeah.
I spent, in my case, spent at least as much on gas as I did on my ticket, just because I lived out in the middle of nowhere. But since you quasi referenced it, we'll kind of like tailor it back in with your wrestling career. So, like, what got you to metaphorically cross the barricade, if you will, and decide to train and get in the ring?
Well, this one goes because technically I started training in 2017, and it would have been a year earlier, but I don't remember the name of it. But there was this really bad hurricane that hit Puerto Rico around 2016, 2017, that hit my family super hard. Where I forgot the name, but like they were living off of a generator. Like I was working and sending money to them, and I just wanted that to be my focus because it's at the time it was like my mom, a set of cousins, and then everyone else was in Puerto Rico. So I wanted to really give back, and now today it's literally like myself, my wife, and that same set of cousin. My mom moved back to Puerto Rico, so it's like all family is over there. So I was like they're always in my heart. But I would have started, probably like towards the end of 2016, and then eventually I first was, out of college. I was just like getting a random job. I was committed to the CrossFit life, which if you hate it, whatever, do. It was great. It was fun to do, but I was always like athletic and moving. I would do like intramural sports, but I always had like this theater side of me. I did improv around Chicago land, where I met some wrestlers and all that, but I still didn't think it was like possible. I felt like you had to just be chosen, kind of like a hook in an arcade machine. To just kind of like, and it's like, all right, you're a wrestler now, go over here. And then when my theater that I was helping with doing improv and theater and like stand-up comedy and all that closed down, I like felt like an artistic, wave just like disappeared from my life. And I was like, there was like a void in me where I was just like working, going home, exercising, working, going home, exercising. And, being in, young after college, the weekends would be boring. So it'd be like, let's go to hang out with friends and drink a lot. And then I actually went to an anime convention in Rosemont, and I met a guy named Ari Akuma, who at the time was working with CSW. He was working with Freelance Underground, and him and a few of my friends like knew each other. And then at this convention in 2016, 2017, he was like, "Oh, how are you?" And then we started talking about wrestling. He was like, "Whoa, that's awesome. Well, I do wrestling." And I was like, "That's not real. You don't just do wrestling." And he's like, "What? Where are you out of?" And at the time, I was living in River Forest, so it's very close to the trainings of CSW, Chicago Style Wrestling. He's like, "Just hit up this guy named Steve Boz." And I was like, "What a weird name is that?" That's. And on, I think probably like that Sunday or Monday, I sent him a message on Facebook, and he immediately responded and was like, just bring in your knee pads, shoes, whatever. And I went there for the first practice and just saw. Then I think around that weekend that hurricane hit, so I took like a little bit of a hiatus, but after about like August, like going into the fall of 2017, I started training at CSW, and then here we are almost 10 years later, about to wrap up, just going into my eighth year of wrestling.
And like you've gotten like before I derail things again and again, because that's what I do on this here show. But like I've in what I call research, I like kind of go over like match listings and whatnot, and I've slowly learned not to like go be the nerd and be like on such and such date or whatever. But I like, but
No,
but
please.
but like I go over like Joe, like without like traveling the country, like you've racked up like lots and lots of matches just.
Oh yeah.
And like, I mean, I guess that's the beauty of being in Chicago in a major metropolitan area, and then like Indiana's, well, obviously Indiana's not far away, but like Indiana, but like Evansville over there's got the scene, and then Milwaukee's just a hop, skip, and a jump away as well.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like crazy going nuts, just kind of like going over like just the match listing alone. And I mean, yeah, traffic's terrible, as we touched before I hit the record button on here. But like, still, like in terms of like miles in the car, like you've gotten a resume without like putting that many miles on, which is sweet.
So funny story about that. At my work right now, which I won't disclose because I don't want people to figure out where I am, because I want my life to be a mystery, of course. But there's like it's part of the building is connected to like a rent-a-car place. And I just rented out a car to do, I think, like a whole weekend worth of shows. And the same person that, attended me, when I got the car was there when I was returning it on like the Sunday afternoon. And they're like, okay, cool. Let me just look at the mileage. And then it was just like that Steve Harvey fake meme where it's just like, like, whoa, you did that in one weekend? I was like, yeah. Going from like middle of nowhere Wisconsin to then Iowa, then back to Chicago, or technically Chicagoland area for like a Galli and something like that, and then return back to Chicago, which is like a 45-minute drive from anywhere in Illinois. And it was it's crazy to think that I've mostly been in the Midwest, but it's like just driving can be from Indianapolis is like 4 or 5 hours to then go up to like a blizzard brawl somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, to then, fight, which was in Iowa, which is in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. There's a lot of middle of nowheres, and they're very hard to get to. So.
That's the thing. Like the rest of the country like really doesn't think about like when it comes to like Illinois. It's Chicago, and then there's just like the rest of the area. Like in general, there's Chicago and the suburbs, which will take you forever to get through, despite being comparatively speaking, relatively small area. And then, but like once you get out of the suburbs, you are going to travel like 90 minutes to reach like what would be defined as a city, aka having like 10,000 people or more. Like,
I like to say that because I look through like kind of like sometimes I'll look at my like my matches, or like a lot of people will remind me, or kind of like this, I'll look at the cage match of what all the things that I've seen. And sometimes I'll look at those and be like, wow, I've only really wrestled in Chicago a handful of times, because it's like I've done like Freelance Underground, but that's in like, a suburb, Palatine, Illinois, whatever. I've wrestled in Evanston, Illinois. I've wrestled in LaGrange, but I've only done like a handful of times actually in Chicago. And it's like, but that's just the game. That's just the game.
Yeah, it's like everything in the suburbs is just Chicago, like regardless of which one. Like,
yeah, of course.
And so because I'm a fellow Illinoiser, and that's like I kind of treat it like that too. Even though I'm sitting there going like, I would like to go this, but I don't want to go to Chicagoland just to go to Berwyn and see. Even though even though there are killer bloody shows like there, but like.
Oh yeah.
For my level of anxiety and my road rage, it's just at the end of the day not work. Especially if it's a Friday where I gotta like try to get off work early to brave the traffic to do all that stuff. But but it's beautiful because like I had David Lawless, the Gavel, on, and he talked about like, oh yeah, I'm getting at least 30 matches a year. I'm not leaving, like I'm only like at most driving 2 hours from my house. And
man,
like, but he's out, but like in the Pittsburgh area, there's just a ton of stuff going on, and get
Yeah.
away with it.
Hey, whatever. With the world of social media, man, you could stay like you could walk across the street and then just pretend like you're everywhere, you know? Sometimes you got to go everywhere. Sometimes you stay at home. Sometimes opportunities just knock and they come out, and that's just the business.
Yeah.
I think that's just the business.
Yeah, I would like we touch on social media. Like, yeah, that is the magical boon. Like, that's why I always like kind of laugh, because pulling back the curtain at my end, like I'll send out like my invites to folks, and I send invites all over the country. Like, I see someone that looks interesting, I reach out, and I do get like way too much. Like, how did you find me? Like they were in witness protection or something. Like, you have an Instagram page. How do you think I found you? Like,
Yeah,
like,
true.
I have an IWTV subscription. How do you think I
That's
found
it.
you? Like, you
Yeah,
wrestled in some rando company that I decided just to watch on a Wednesday, because
there
I
it
would
is.
rather watch wrestling than Netflix. And
Well,
I could, I'll find interesting folks everywhere. Though, like in your case, like we'll mark you the special category, because I've gotten to see you live, actually,
yes.
in Davenport, Galli Lucha Libre,
Oh
and
yeah.
so, which I feel bad, because that show was terribly attended, and so there's no reason for Galli to come back. Sad face, from a business standpoint, of course, but it was
Yeah.
freaking sweet to see like Lucha Libre action. So since I kind of accidentally segued into that, like let's talk about, like, you've done a lot of work for Galli. Like, how did you kind of like get into it and become kind of a mainstay, and like had pretty darn good success within the company?
Yeah. Well, I came into coming from CSW, very near that area of like the suburbs near like like the River Forest, Oak Park, and all that, to kind of put it in perspective for all the people around the world watching, to put it in perspective, of course. The Galley, and like LLT were kind of LLT's was like in the Berwyn area, while Galley was in like the North Avenue area near kind of like LaGrange, Addison. So it was like closer to home for me. And at the time, our trainee, the one and only Steve Boz, was reached out by both promotions asking for kind of trainees looking to get some reps in, because at the time, I don't know what happened. I guess they just needed more spots to fill. So he kind of like divided our class. It's like U6 go to LLT, U6 go to Galley, and it was about 2019. I remember the first show was like 3 weeks before Christmas of 2019, and we did this one show. It was an opener, like we were the opener, just like pre-show match, whatever. Come to the back, no one saw our match. Nobody said hello to us. It was just kind of like, all right, anyway. And then after the show, they're like, hey, we're doing this thing over here in the middle of nowhere. It's for like a soccer lucha promotion. You guys want to come? And we're like, okay. And that was just my introduction to Galli, because and into the lucha libre scene. And then from there, I started doing trainings with them. In 2019, that's where I met like Gringo Loco, and at the time, it was on special occasions because he was still signed with WWE, but sometimes Mustafa Ali would come around and do like late night practices, and those were crazy difficult. And then because of Galli, I just kept on. At the time when they were in the Swap Mart, which was like a 5-star Swap Mart where he had a ring, he had a gym, and we would just have like shows pretty much every single Sunday, because it was it was right there. Like it was part of a mall. It was part of a Swap Mart. So we would just get so many reps in. I met so many people. I met Black Taurus, now in the AEW as the Beast Mortis. I met Ades, Hologram. I met all these crazy, awesome luchas. Sam Adonis, a bunch of people from CMLL. Was part of now like one of the last shows Penta did before he went to AEW. I've wrestled Psycho Clown. I've wrestled Mr. Iguana at Galli, so it just was crazy that I went from like this, just like, well, do we say hello? Like what, because it was just like a year after I was kind of into training, a year and a half or so, whatever. and they're like, "Yeah, come do this, come do that, come do this, come do that." And now I'm their world heavyweight champion, or campeón mundial, of course. And I won their minor title, their like IC championship, the Discovery championship. A few of my friends in our faction won the tag team champions, and I love Galli. It's my lucha home for wrestling.
And that I wasn't familiar with it until they come to Davenport, Iowa, which I just said like nobody showed up, and it made me sad.
Yeah.
But I also blame like the advertisements, because the advertisements look like scams. Like I only saw like advertisements on Facebook, and they were like that like the Van Gogh experience, where like they just wouldn't give you any information about things. They're just like, Davenport, Iowa, Galli Lucha Libre. See these people.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, I want to see these people. Like, what's going on with it? But I also kind of worry about giving my debit card information because like I even like tried to go like through get like tickets, and the website was terrible. So I tried to go through the venue site, and somehow the venue site was even worse, despite like being connected to like one of the bigger like theaters that isn't a stadium in the Quad Cities. And so I'm just like, well, I hope this is real when the day comes by. But like, but then like,
I think we did 2 shows, if I'm not mistaken, in Davenport. And I remember because one of them was a big. I remember they got like vans to like take us from Illinois to Davenport, because that was like the first show that Drago, Audio Star, and Mil Muertes were like doing. It was like their first thing from like Lucha Underground to the Indies or whatever, from AAA, whatever, and they made it this huge big deal. And we're like, this is a huge auditorium. We were like all so excited, and then exactly like that, we like went out to the outside. It was like, there's like 50 people here, and this place is definitely meant for thousands and thousands of people.
Mil Muertes. Now I'm really kicking myself if I missed out on Mil Muertes, because I only went to one, and it was Drago, Aramis, Aerostar.
Yes.
Like those were the attractions that were brought in for that. And I mean, being a Lucha Underground fan, like it was still cool enough to see those guys in action. And then like this podcast started out as an MLW podcast, and so Aramis had just kind of like come in through, and once I found out Aramis was there, I was really disappointed we didn't get to see Ares, because I mean I still love Ares, but just having the opportunity to see him live would have been just mind-blowing.
Dude, those two names, when I first met them, I was like, man, those guys are cool. And when I met them and I've wrestled them, I was like, these are just awesome people. And it really like opened my eyes to what like Lucha Libre could be, because I got the perspective of training with them, talking with them, having like dinner and lunch, and like traveling with them. It was really cool. And they're just cool people, great people, very talented, probably the top people right now. I hope to continue to see them everywhere, and it's just really awesome to share those experiences. And I'm happy that you're a fan of them, because you understand how good they are.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to ask, like, given Ares alone is, I mean, he's King of Strange style. Like, obviously his style's different. Like, is there any like, I don't know, kind of like a clash with like how your training has gone, even within Lucha, like, and then working with Ares? I mean, obviously he works Lucha, but he's got his own weird little frenetic style going on.
Oh yeah. I remember the first time I trained with him, because in the days where I was telling you, where they would have the swap mart, where Carlos always said he had like this training facility where he would let luchadors, like if they were coming from Mexico, just stay in the swap mart, because he had like a little back area where you could put like mattresses and whatever. So some of these guys would just stay for like a week, and they would do like trainings with us. And I remember it was like, oh, Ares is going to stay for 1 week. Who wants to come train with Ares? And we're thinking, oh, he's going to do the same drills that we were doing with Aramis or with Gringo. And immediately no. He wanted, the first thing he wanted to do, which was really cool, and I did terrible at, because this was I would still consider myself early in the career, was we played horse. What you would assume is basketball, but with the ring. So he was like, all right, so I'm going to do this. If I mess up, the next person comes in and we try to imitate that. And like the first thing he did was like springboard, off it, and then the weird neck thing he would do. And we were all like, okay, like, it's like, oh, okay. So And then it was like that. It's like, okay, cool, we'll get back to it. Then he just blew us up for like 2 hours and then came back in and very similar. It was like, okay, now we're just going to do this. I'm going to say this one time. And then he would do this very complicated spot with Gringo Loco or one of the like Lucha kids and would do it absolutely perfectly. And then he'd just be like, next two, and it was just like one of the hardest trainings ever and just like kind of blew my mind and kind of opened my eyes to like, a lot of people, I always say the saying, like, we all like get taught how to throw a ball, but everybody does their own thing and knows how to do it differently, and just does it. Like I can say like, hey, just throw the ball, and it'd be like this, but then when I do it, it's a little different. We all have like our own style. It was like one of those times where it was like, this is how he works. This is how he sees his success and how he like trains. And I was like, this isn't for me because I'm not super good at it. I can try my hardest. I'm not going to quit, whatever. But I remember just oozing sweat. And I felt bad for the partner I was ever with because usually I was considered the base. So I'd be just like, sorry, 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 as I like made flips. And they had their legs around my heads or catching them for like DDTs and all that. Like, I'm so sorry. I hope this looks good because I'm just pouring sweat on this person. I feel so bad. But that was like I will always have that memory of training with Aras, just being like I literally thought when he's like, all right, we play horse. I was like, we're going to just go play basketball. Let's go play basketball. Cool. Let's go hang out and play basketball with Aras. And he's like, no. Different horse.
If you compare his style like throwing a ball, he's a knuckleballer because you just don't know you don't
yeah.
know where that ball's just going to go. Like,
yeah. So at CSW, I just a couple months ago, I tagged with him. And we're just and he was like, what do you want to do? He's like, I don't know, we'll kind of do this. And then all of a sudden a guy comes up to him with an order of Panda Express. And he's just like and he's like, yeah, that's mine. He's like, this guy really just is the king of strange. He's like, okay, do we want to have a game set plan for these guys that we're wrestling? It's just like, I mean, whatever you want to come up with, we'll do. And then he, of course, and it's just eating Panda Express, and then when we wrestle, he's like, "Oh no, I'm getting my ass beat," and he's doing like these stomps and kicks. It's like, that's not what we talked about, but hey, it's working. That's just King of Strange styles. Love the guy.
Well, I mean, tied in with the story earlier, which like we've just kind of gone all over the place with, but there's your improv background right there.
Absolutely. Going with the flow. You just got to go with it's a yes and. Wrestling is very yes and, which is works with my brain, works with my training, works with everything. So I was like, you know what? This guy's just going to do whatever he does. Let's just go with it. So,
I mean, you're not going to like, I mean, and when I say you, it's the general you. You're not going to be able to do what he does because he just.
No.
There's a handful of guys whose style is almost wholly unique. Like, yes, as you put it, like everyone does certain things, but like Arias is just one who just does his own thing, and like him, and just like a handful of others, like Alec Price, who just do their own thing, and they just also luck out that they're really, really good, so it works for them and everybody else around them. I just wish I could be like that good at literally anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm very happy to have like shared the ring with somebody like that because he is so unique, he is so interesting, but it's also like good to know that I've also done matches with him, against him, and I've been able to keep up. That's kind of like the style I've always kind of like wished for myself, the guy that can work with anybody, the guy that can do his stick with anybody and then make the people that like the artists or even like whoever I'm working with locally still look great and get their stuff in. Like that's kind of what I cherish. And I remember talking with him, he's like, oh, thank you, very good, so that just meant so much to me every time I work with somebody like that.
Well, and I think, I mean, you've kind of got a unique background, like even compared to speaking being shipped off to, I guess we'll call it shipped off, like across the Berg to Galli, just because you kind of you started watching the Lucha Cruiserweights, got into like the sports entertainment of WWE, wrestling, we'll call it a traditional pro style for the most part, or at least training wise coming up, because like Boz, I've heard nothing but good things about his training. But like one thing I've kind of like been told is he's very much overall like meat and potatoes, and then going off to get Lucha training off of that too. Like you've kind of
Yeah.
gotten like a little bit of everything, which like I think it comes through like with what I've seen of you, because like I could see some of the sports entertainment. Like obviously you are a very good worker, and then now you're hanging out with holding your own with legendary, dare I say, luchadors, because Galli brings in names. Like let's like I that's why one of many reasons why I'm still salty about the Davenport show, which I'll bring up again, because you're bringing in like royalty for the peasants that don't appreciate it.
Well, that's why it's like very cool to like know that somebody in that area is a fan, because like some of the times when you think of these like the match cards, and then you think of like, because one of my favorite comedians was just made a joke that like there's a lot of towns in Wisconsin and like the Midwest area that have like these very either generic names or like names that you can't even pronounce. So when I think of just like like Lucha Underground comes to Waukesha, Wisconsin, like I never would be like, what, that's where all the luchador fans, they're all in Waukegan, right. Illinois, like they're in Waukesha, Wisconsin, like Davenport, Iowa, Lucha, like I never would put that together. But then at the end of the day, I like to say, like in most of the wrestling shows, like I just work here, we're here, I'm here, let's just wrestle. And no matter what, that's the nice thing about like why I love going to Galli too. Even though like Lucha, like the kids, the trainees, and the older guys, they always give their 100%, whatever their character is, whatever, like they give like as if there's thousands of people, which is like why I keep going back, like why I love working with them, why I love like bringing in my guys that you do that, because like it's Galli and it's growing. It's on Roku TV, which is like the same streaming service as NWA, like, so it's like, hell yeah. And it's like a great place for reps, but it also is like, who knows who's going to show up for the headliner, maybe you'll get like a Ray Fuego, and who knows. So that's why I love it. And I'm so happy that we did that one, Davenport show that made this conversation happen, and that made you realize Galli is awesome, because that's really the whole point of it, the takeaway, that hopefully just one person or like one clip or whatever these days, takes us to the next thing.
I mean, it's again, like we referenced social media before, like that's kind of like the beauty of the age we live in, is that like if something can pop off anywhere and you can build a fan half a world away, just because just one person shared a clip or like whatever. Because as I said, like I have IWTV. There is a little bit of everything just sitting there at my fingertips. I just like yes, there's a rotation of companies I like to watch, but like sometimes I'm just like, I want to see so and so, and I'll just type in like whoever's name into the search bar, and then just give me a list of list of shows that person appeared on, and I'll just choose one. And it might be New York Wrestling Connection. It might be Full Queer Wrestling, like coast to coast. They got they have some like one-off or two-off like Lucha Libre shows from like the mid-2000s. It's just weird and random, and you never know like what's gonna go.
You'll even see Galli on there. A few of my matches, a bunch of my matches have been on IWTV from Galli.
That's another one. I was like I saw Galli on there too. It's just like, is the Davenport show on there? Because that's like one of it's like that's honestly like one of my like little like I don't want to call it a hobby, because I don't do spend that much time on it, but I do like enjoy getting like a secondary perspective of shows I've attended. Just seeing like because seeing things live, you are stuck in your seat or your generic area wherever you're at, and the action can appear very different from what would be like, we'll call it the cameraman's point of view, or even a different seat, just like, and so sometimes I'm like, oh, this is like I missed out on this part of it just because like the camera's right there and I'm 20 feet away or however many, or I get a different, or I can have Atlantis Junior smack my knee with a guardrail, and the
Yep.
camera's not going to catch that properly because they're trained to catch a dive certain way, and I caught the dive with my knee.
That's true. You never know. You never know.
But yeah. So like, besides Galli, like, yeah, we've kind of referenced kind of coming all around, and I do want to just like touch on just some of the other places before I kind of like try to turn you loose and whatnot. But like, just on the nerd in me as well, in addition to doing the lucha stuff, like you've had an opportunity at the NWA television championship within the last calendar year. Like, was that kind of like a nifty thing, like in your head, or is it just more in my head where you got this, you know, the NWA championship's a little bit more my esteem since I'm a touch older than you?
Well, I kind of at the moment, because it was one of those things where I was working with NWA Chicago at the time. I like even did their Riot Fest show, not this year, but like the last previous year. So I was always just working, and it's just one of those things. It's kind of like I was clocked in every time that they came around. If they asked me to come, whatever they had me doing, I was like, you know what, let me give it my best. Had a couple wins, couple losses here. I had a lot of, my friends come by, a lot of my family come support, because, when you think of like NWA, it's like a bigger, promotional name. And it is so funny because it's like my uncles from Hinsdale, Illinois were like, I think my father used to watch, and it's like, that's the one I'll show up. I'm not going to show up for the galleys or whatever, but this seems like it might be a little, because they think this is like fake and a hobby, it's like, oh, okay, thanks guys. But then, so like, I remember like thinking back on it as like, that was awesome. It was nuts. But when it comes to even like the shows that are coming up for me, like defending belts, and I kind of get in the zone. So when I see like match cards like that, it's like, okay, let me prep. Let me see, at that time Carson's, like what he's done in the past, what kind of person he is. And, I kind of do my, like, I start to get into like work mode where it's like you're prepping for a job or prepping for like a big test. That's kind of like the zone I get for that week or like the 2 weeks or whatever have you. And then after that, it's like, now I look back at it, it's like, that was really cool. I can't believe it. Like on the history books of NWA, eventually, as you go on to page 60, it's like, oh, Axel Rico versus, oh, that's cool. Like it'll always at least be there. And it was a really honor. It was a great match. Obviously I didn't win, but like, what are you going to do? But
Next time.
I always have that, like, yeah, hey, close. Okay. It was close. Okay. But no, it was an absolute honor. They're still doing shows in the Chicagoland area, and I know if they were to ever ring, I would definitely take that in a heartbeat. But nowadays it's so hard because now it's like, now I'm getting booked here, getting booked there. It's like, oh, and this, they're just showing up. It's like, I'm a big like calendar guy. It's like, if it's already in there, I can try to make them both happen. But with Chicago traffic on a Friday, I'm sorry, I got it. Whatever show I'm committed to, I got to go either 3 hours immediately, or I'm not even gonna be able to make it. Whatever. But yeah, no, it's been great. Love working with NWA. Even before they did NWA stuff, there was this promotion called Damage Inc., and I got to wrestle Thomas Latimer, and that was a lot of fun. He's a crazy awesome dude. Very calm dude in the back, in the back when you're just chilling with, he's a big, sit in the back, drinking a beer. It's like, how are you? And then in the ring, he's like this ginormous behemoth of a man, working with him. And, that was really cool. And at that same promotion, got to work with people like Juventud Guerrera, like super, it's one of those things where it's like, whoa, okay, I have to prep. But then like the fan part of me after that is like, you've wrestled Juventud Guerrera? Like, like that's super cool. It's like, you wrestled for NWA? That's actually really freaking cool, and it's an honor for me. But there's a lot of things where it's like, I have to get reminded. It's like, oh yeah, I did do that. That is really freaking cool. But in the moment I was like, yeah, I just got to prep for that, because I see it as a final exam. It's got to be the best. It's got to at least be 80% or better. It's got to be a passing grade. It can't be, it's got to be at least 95, or it's got to be 100. So that's just my mentality when it comes to wrestling, though. But I love everything that I've done, and I'm happy where I'm at right now. I hope more things happen. Who knows? I got a big show with Blizzard Brawl coming up. Who knows? Working with OVW stars. So it's really cool, and I'm very excited for whatever happens in the future.
Well, and the perk of being in Chicago, the Chicagoland, is like it's a step, it's a stopping point for larger companies or companies that are looking to kind of we'll call it branch out or look for like partnerships or collaborations as well, because I mean no show's guaranteed to have a large crowd, but at least if you're in a hopefully a densely populated area, it'll be mutually beneficial for all the companies involved. And like we like brought up like with the NWA, like they've been really trying to bring back the concept of the territories, and like obviously Chicago has a rich wrestling history, though it was more of an AWA territory back in the day, but still like obviously the wrestling scene there is just crazy go nuts with Galli, CSW, Second Wrestling, and just
you name it.
those are just three. Like that's and there are obviously bunches more that I either am not aware of or are just forgetting off the top of my head, because there are so many wrestling companies that I keep tabs on or follow on social media or do whatever.
Well, it's got to be it's like one of those things where I've heard from fans where it's like Chicago's like a capital for wrestling, at least one of them, like one of the most popular, because when the big shows come into town or the small shows, it's always treated like the fans are always there for it. I love the CSW fans. The Galli fans don't like me as much, but that makes it so much easier to work, So I love always working around this area because no matter what, even with promotions like POW Entertainment, it's like a smaller venue, but it's like a venue, like the voices of the 100 or 100 and something people there are like the voices of thousands, where they're like, you'll hear a little kid be like, oh, he cheated, and then like a mom be like, yeah, he did, and then it just like kind of becomes that like that like domino effect, and it's like super cool. So I do love working this whole area, and even small towns of like in the Illinois, they're like this is going to be awesome. We're part of the show, and they get it, so it makes it super easy.
I mean, and they're like, and that's the kind of like the magic of sometimes the small shows too. Is just like sometimes like the lack of crowd like makes up for itself by just being like the most raucous, especially if there's kids involved, because the magic. I mean, magic doesn't always go away for everyone, but the magic is extra real for them. And
oh yeah, absolutely. The amount of kids that I love and hate, man. If I had a nickel, let me tell you, I'd be broke. And I know I'll be like surprised at some, because I remember I did some like helping out at one of those ICWs in Berwyn, and I'm like, why are there like 4-year-old children here? Like like there's warnings about like be careful glass, and they're like on the barricades being like, look, and like, why are you here? Like go back to like watching, I don't know, Roblox on YouTube or something like that. But you can't. I love all the fans, and I hate all the fans at the same time. Like it's a great thing, but it's like, man, like this kid is really, like I'm trying my hardest. Like I'm like getting my ass beat up, and this kid is hitting me in my soul. It's like, you know what? But love it, love and hate, love hate. It's a love hate relationship.
I mean, everything's great if you can just get to watch it, because like I till my dying day, I'm going to remember the 6-year-old that cut a promo on Big E. One of the times I went to WWE, because dating myself here, New Day was still heels at that point. They're still bad guys, and it was a house show, and they were in the ring cutting promos, and Big E basically said this is Springfield, Illinois. The children of Springfield, Illinois were like the ugliest and stupidest that he'd ever seen. And instead of just like, and there's this kid next to me, and instead of crying or like, he got like legit angry and like cut a promo from like the 10th row back. Like nobody could hear him except like for like the 4 people around him who are now like losing themselves. This is the kid like if he was a real man, I would show him who's stupid and ugly, and just like shaking and just like cutting like almost like a 1980s promo, only without the screaming. Like, and it was just
That's a future wrestler right there. That's a future wrestler right
like I don't like maybe I'll remember his face and just be like, that kid's champion now, and like I don't know. For all I know, he's training the Black and the Brave right now. For all I know, and or like he's had his first matches and I've booed him because that's something I would have done because I'm also a jerk like those children.
Awesome, that's great.
Oh, but kind of try to wind things down here for a bit. But thank you for coming on. Where can we see you in the next couple of weeks? And where can we find you on socials and or merch or anything else that you want to promote at this moment?
Of course. Well, I'm a big promoter of any and all things on the social medias, of course. I am Axel Rico on Instagram, X, Facebook. I know on X and Instagram because apparently there's like a South American singer named Axel Rico, but doesn't look like me at all. So I put like a couple of R's. But either way, if you look up Axel Rico on Instagram, on the X, the only one that is either drop kicking someone in the air, diving on somebody, or like with a championship belt around their waist is me. Same thing with the Facebook. I promote all of my shows on there. Of course, every single month, CSW. I don't know when this is going to come out, but we have a couple shows into December, November, December, and every third Friday usually we'll be posting, when the shows are. Galli, is coming up with Galli's Navidad, which is like the big, Christmas December show coming up. Blizzard Brawl, I'm going to be there. And then towards the end of the year, it's 2026. Who knows? I'm going to definitely be putting out a fishing line of promotions going on here and there. Second Pro Wrestling is, home at Cubby Bear now, right in Chicago. So who knows? That might be our home now. So who knows who's going to be coming around in 2026. And of course, I've even got one here. Brand new Axel Rico shirts. Myself as a freaking Power Ranger because I'm a freaking nerd, of course. So those are always, I always bring those at shows. I've got buttons, all that. I'm adjusting my socials so that my like 1 hour tease thing will be changed because my my first email for 1 hour tease got hacked. It was like, oh great, thanks, congratulations, you had a receipt of my mom buying my first shirt, thank you, like take it, go with it. So I'm adjusting that, so hopefully by the time this comes out, it'll be on my like description of my social medias and stuff. And of course, when it comes to booking information, if any of you guys out there use Gmail, it's bookaxelrico@gmail, of course. There it is right there. Do some editing.
There you go.
Making you do some
editing. No, my biggest weakness.
No. But yeah, no, that's just me. I'm a big fan of on any of these, like whoever's watching, even if it's me, support indie wrestling, support every small promotion, even big ones. Chicago style wrestling, even one follow, one share, whatever helps myself, helps the promotion out, helps all these people out. And buy some swag. I'll even give you a deal because you're sharing my shirt or button with the world, so it means the world to me. So that's me.
There we go. Axel, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. It was great being able to just like kind of like nerd out and talk Lucha with a guy who's actually got to be in the ring with the legends.
Oh yeah. Can I tell one last story before we go?
Take all the time you want.
All right. So right here, hold on. Let me see if I can, show off my guns here. Of course, right here. So this tattoo is a Lucha mask, of course. I finally decided to get it because I felt like I needed like Lucha or like wrestling part of my body because I'm a big fan of, if I have art on me, it's got to be meaningful. And the most metal thing in the world that I've done so far in my life, being on this earth, was main eventing a Lucha vegan festival, which, crazy. A Lucha vegan festival with myself, Hans Carden, against Psycho Clown and Mahiko. We were at the end of the night. It was a whole festival. So like at the beginning of the day, there was like vegan candle makers, vegan, whatever you were, as long as you were a vegan, you could come to this festival, right? So was prepping because I knew my match, and I'm not a vegan connoisseur to say the least. So I was going to these shops, whatever, and there was a vegan tattoo artist, and I was like, man, we're at the end of the night. I don't want to get, like inked before I like wrestle against a literal psycho, who wears a clown mask, rips it, like who knows what he's gonna
sometimes.
do. Yeah. So it's like, man, do I want to get it infected and die? And I was like, I told this lady, like, please, 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 please. I'm towards the end of the night, just stay. I'll give you 10 extra bucks, whatever. And we do the whole wrestling match, and whatever. I see that she's starting to pack up, whatever. And I'm like, please, 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 just wait. Change really quickly. Take my photo with Psycho Clown and my friends. And this was just the most metal thing because there was also a vegan metal band. Didn't know that was a thing. And she put me down on the table, was as heavy metal's going on and people are mosh pitting, like going crazy. So I wrestled against Psycho Clown while mosh pitting was going on, and then got a tattoo from a vegan tattoo artist. So I consider that like the most metal thing I've ever done in my life. And I have the story right here on my tricep to remember it forever. So that's Axel Rico's metal moment right there. More editing for you to do. I had Star White there.
I mean, that is the wacky realm of professional wrestling. Like my last week's episode with Matt Hatter, we just talked about how it's like wrestling's just kind of weird about like how you just attract things, because that's what wrestling is just things that you wouldn't think about happening. But they happened. Yep. Like you got a nickel from that, from like whatever. It's not much, but did it.
Trust me. Like if we ever want to chat again, I've got so many random, ridiculous stories that I just need. Like, just give me a trigger word, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this one time. But that's one that I, speaking to, especially with the focus of the Lucha, whatever, I can't get away with not telling this beautiful story that I've got on my arm for the rest of my life. So, but it's so metal. I can't not tell it. I hope that didn't make you go overboard, but but I will want those edits. I want to see those edits. I want to see your work put down, because I'm doing this on my time, and so I'm going to make you use your time. Okay, buddy?
There we go. You're going to be the guy name drop instead of Pretty Boy Smooth from here on out.
You do the work.
Well, that's whose catchphrase is that? Do the work. It's some wrestler's catchphrase. It's blanket on me right now, but yeah.
Of course, do El Único's work.
Star Swipe.
There you go.
But again, thank you for coming on. It was a blast. Even if I have to do a bunch of extra work for it, totes worth it.
Wonderful. That's what I want to hear. But yes, I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me. Sometimes it's just nice to just sit back, talk about, SHIT with some new people and some friends. And hopefully, you know what? We've got a CMLL show this weekend with Galli. I'll make sure to whisper into Carlos's ear. We got to go back to Davenport. Those 50 people keep on hitting me up, and they want us back. I'm sorry. Come on, we gotta give the people what they want.
Don't make the rules, but I need that payday, and that's a little bit of extra merch money. There we go.
There we go.
The Confusion Wrestling Podcast is a weekly podcast that is written and performed by Rob Kammer and hosted by Spotify for podcasters. The background music for this section is Ruined by Day, performed by Alan Schroeder. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to help support, please like, subscribe, and tell your friends, family, and enemies. Leaving a review is helpful as well, because word-of-mouth advertisement is very important for us small podcasts. My social media links can be found in the description, but Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky are at The Nova of Cass. That's TheNovaofCass, and Facebook is MLW Confusion, all one word. If you'd like to support monetarily and help upgrade my equipment, please check out my virtual tip jar at ko-fi.com/Casanova, or if you prefer more bang for your buck, go to patreon.com/Casanova That's CASSONOVA, where for as little as $2, backers get access to the podcast early and without those pesky ads, plus other exclusive content. So join the crew that is headed up by Keith Wynn, Alan Schroeder, Chris Zach, and Elenia, and check it out. You can also find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other merch at the Confusion Podcast store on Teespring. Also, be sure to check out the affiliate links in the description below. For business inquiries such as ads, sponsorships, and etc., please email rzkamer, Kamer, at comcast.net. Thank you all for listening.